This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to the Young Wealth Show, where you'll truly learn how to make, spend, and invest money for an awesome life. Get the real-life stuff that wasn't part of your school curriculum. Young Wealth gives you innovative new ways of dealing with your finances, as well as the skills and tools you're going to need to survive and be successful out on your own. Let the Young Wealth Show be your GPS to take you from clueless to clued in. Here's your host, Jason Hartman, with Young Wealth.
Welcome to the Young Wealth Show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, and today we've got show number 9 for you. This is going to be a great show. I think you'll really like this interview. When I recently talked to Donna Fenn, and she is the author of Upstarts, and this is a great book. A lot of great information here, profiling young entrepreneurs and some really cool stuff they've done. So enjoy this, and here's the interview. It's my pleasure to welcome Donna Fenn to the show. She's the author of Upstarts, How Gen Y Entrepreneurs Are Rocking the World of Business, and 8 Ways You Can Profit from Their Success. Donna, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on. Tell us about this book. It's a great title and a great subtitle, and in today's economy, everybody wants to rock the world of business.
I think that's absolutely true. Well, the idea came about because I've been writing about small business and entrepreneurship for over 20, almost 25 years. For Inc. magazine and for others. And a few years ago, I began noticing more and more companies than I'd ever seen before being started by people in their 20s. And I really wanted to know why that was and what was going on, what kinds of companies they were starting and how they were starting them and why they were starting them. And the idea just evolved into a book. And it was great fun to write. It was amazing getting to know all these young entrepreneurs. I interviewed about 150 of them, and about 64 of them appear in the book. The book contains sort of real examples of very successful people in Gen Y, which I define as born 1977 to the mid-90s, people who that age were starting businesses.
Fantastic. Certainly, Gen Y is more tech-savvy, and they grew up with technology, so they're very comfortable with it. But do you think part of the reason entrepreneurship has become such a big deal, it's just the mainstay, people don't really think of getting out of school and going to work for a company necessarily anymore. They think about becoming entrepreneurs just right out of the chute a lot of times. Is that because they just don't sense any sort of security from the corporate world?
Well, I think that's part of it, but also it's worth noting that sometimes they don't even wait to get out of the chute. They're starting businesses before they get to college. They're starting businesses while they are in college. I hear from more and more people in university environments that they're seeing, people who came, a few years ago who came in as freshmen would take an entrepreneurship class with the intention of thinking about starting a business. And now they're taking that same class with the intention of growing and expanding an existing business. So I think they're starting younger and younger. And I do think that it's partly because the bloom is off the rose as far as corporate America is concerned, and that's partly because this is a generation that saw their parents downsize from corporate jobs. They witnessed all these sort of first-generation corporate scandals like Enron and WorldCom, and then they saw the collapse of the financial industry and the economy. I started writing this book when the economy was still good. So, in fact, I think even before the economy tanked, this was an attractive option for a lot of people in this generation. And another reason for that is that they're the first generation, when you think about it, to really grow up with a huge number of entrepreneurial role models. Steve Jobs and Richard Branson and Michael Dell and Anita Roddick. These are sort of folk heroes for them growing up. These are the people whose pictures appeared on the cover of Time and Newsweek. When we were growing up, when I was growing up, it was astronauts and rock stars and politicians,
right.
Not entrepreneurs. So it's a different mentality. Entrepreneur was not necessarily a positive word, back in the 70s and 80s when I was these kids' age.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Seth Godin's got a book titled Tribes, and your first chapter talks about extreme collaborators and how these upstarts are really building cooperative tribes to compete. Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that the bottom line is that this generation has sort of rejected the lone wolf mentality of entrepreneurship. I mean, there's some sort of, I'm going to hang out in my garage and invent the next greatest thing all by myself, but there's just not a lot of that. They're reaching out to their peers, to their professors, to their parents, to their alumni networks, and they're drawing in as many people from as many different aspects of their lives as they possibly can to sort of help create a tribe of people who will aid them in creating businesses, not just in terms of financing, although sometimes in terms of financing, but also with idea generation and marketing and managing. They're not a generation that's afraid to ask for help. And what I tell everybody is that this is not a don't trust anybody over 30 generation. They get along very well with their elders because they're a generation that got along very well with their parents, by and large. So they're reaching out to everybody for help, and they're not afraid to tell everybody exactly what they're doing. They're not they don't have this, so if I tell people somebody will steal my idea mentality. If their mentality is I'm going to tell as many people as possible to get as many people as excited as I can about my company, that way, I'll get a lot of help.
That's symptomatic, too, to maybe an understanding that ideas really are a dime a dozen, and there are a lot of ideas and a lot of people and just a lot of stuff going on in the world and with communication. Ideas are not the thing. It's really more about execution nowadays.
It is. Everything becomes a commodity eventually, so it's really all about how you're executing and who you're drawing into your idea and how you're positioning yourself as a company.
That's for sure. So talk to us a little bit, if you would, Donna, about the technology aspect of it. Technology is the great enabler, and it's a differentiator as well. What should someone in the upstart position think about the world of tech?
Well, I think that they're not lovers of technology in and of itself, by and large, although some of them are, obviously, but they view technology as a tool. And so it's not sort of the latest and greatest technology in and of itself that interests them. It's typically used as a tool to sort of create something new and different, and very often to create community. The greatest example for me, or one of the greatest examples, is Aaron Patzer and Mint.com, which is a sort of an online financial management tool that he built because he was dissatisfied with Microsoft Money and Quicken, and that company was sold to Intuit for $170 million very recently. So that's a perfect example of Aaron Patzer, who's a Gen Yer, leveraging technology to create a company, to create a service that he found lacking in sort of existing offerings. It wasn't just I'm going to create this cool technology, but I'm going to create this technology to solve a problem that I have. Another great example is Looped. Do you know that iPhone app? It's sort of location.
Oh, Looped, yes, I have that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of a little it's a friend-finding GPS almost. I have no need for it whatsoever, but it's a very attractive tool for Gen Yers who are out and about and want to know if their friends, if their buddy is at the bar nearby or down the street. So it was a response to Sam Altman, who is the founder, saying, hey, I'm out and about. I wish I could know if my friends were in the area. So, another great example of building a technology to solve a problem.
Did he sell that one? Did Looped sell?
Looped has not sold yet, still independent.
So when you're talking about technologies, there are disruptive technologies that really, really change things. And one game changer obviously was the iPhone just 3-4 years ago now. That really changed the world of the handheld computer, if you will. What are some of these disruptive technologies, and how are they altering the playing field when it comes to business?
Well, I'll tell you, when I talk about disrupting the status quo, I'm not just talking about technology. I'm talking about every industry. And so, for example, a great instance of somebody disrupting an industry is a great little company called College Hunks Hauling Junk. It was started by two guys who used one of their mom's moving vans to start a junk hauling business when they were on summer vacation, when they were in college. And it's now a franchise because essentially what they did was they took a very old industry and they professionalized it. And they also used technology extensively to sort of keep in touch and communicate and train their franchisees. And, they have fantastic branding. They were on Shark Tank a year or so ago, and they're just coming out with a book themselves in the fall. They're junk collectors. This is not a special idea at all, but as we were just talking about, they changed the game in this industry by branding and by execution. And by providing great customer service.
Yeah, it sure is. So the game changers are not just necessarily technology, of course.
No, not at all, not at all.
In terms of kind of some of the insiders and when you talk about marketing and so forth, what's going on there?
Well, one of the things the advantages that Gen Y has is they really understand their own generation, and that is a very big market. There are 77 million Gen Yers. This is a very large demographic, and they have very specific types of needs and specific types of problems to solve. For example, we talked about how Looped was very much created for that generation. And, another great example of that is a company called Igniter. I love this company. It's a little company in New York, and it's an online dating site, but instead of individual profiles, it's groups. post on Igniter. So, you might be 4 girls who would like to meet 4 guys at a bar or, at Central Park to toss a Frisbee or to go get ice cream or, to go to a concert in the park. And for them, that feels a lot safer than meeting a stranger one-on-one. They think that blind dates are kind of creepy and dangerous. And when you think about it, they kind of are. So this is the sort of thing that the Match.coms of the world might have done if they were thinking about how this generation views the world a little bit differently. They're a very group-oriented generation. So this is a very successful little company because it sort of tapped into a specific need of its own generation.
When it comes to branding, there's 2 big dichotomies in the marketing world of branding and direct response. And I find some of these new companies have such clever branding and such totally off-the-wall funny names, too. How is this upstart generation doing branding differently?
Well, I think they're a very brand-conscious generation, and one of the companies that I really love that does a great job of branding is SitterCity.com, and that was started by a wonderful woman in Boston who basically decided to sort of professionalize the babysitting industry. It wasn't even really an industry. She sort of created an industry. So essentially what she does is it's a website where babysitters are connected with the families who so desperately need them. And the company is started by Genevieve Thiers, and it's a multi-million-dollar company now that actually raised venture capital in the middle of the recession. And she's an expert brander. She not only has an online site, but she'll also do the sort of like speed dating between sitters and parents in various cities when she wants to get more members on her site from a city. She'll do a little event. She's an opera singer, so she, sort of by avocation, and she has a CD of songs for kids. I think she's published a book or so. She's been an expert on TV about babysitting techniques. So there's an example of somebody who branded a company in an industry that didn't even exist as an industry before she got into it.
What other branding examples do you have? The College Hunks Hauling Junks, the other company that did a great job of that type of thing was 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Right, exactly. And they actually talked to, he's in Canada, I think.
They're in Vancouver.
And they did actually, I think, speak to him as a mentor when they were starting their company.
Any other thoughts on the brand part of it, though? I love the College Hunks. Did you say the dating service was Ignite? Is that the name of it?
Igniter.
Igniter and the sitting and so forth. Really clever. Other ideas. There's just an endless number.
There's a wonderful company called The Hundreds, which is sort of skateboarding, sort of alternative brand of T-shirts and hoodies and baseball caps, basically streetwear. And this company was started by a couple of guys named Ben and Bobby. They now call themselves Ben and Bobby Hundreds. They've changed their names to suit the company or to connect with the company. And they're a very exclusive brand. It's sort of very interesting the way they've gone about sort of connecting with their users. They have this wonderful website. They have a very engaging blog, and they vowed never to go mass market, even though they have actually been approached by big stores like Target. They know that as soon as their brand appears in the mass market, it will be diluted and devalued in their customers' eyes, and so they keep it sort of smaller and exclusive. And that's very in tune with what this generation wants. They sort of reject mass market everything. They want things to be customized and special and sort of connected to their way of thinking. They don't really like the mass market much.
The big corporatocracy is having some challenges marketing to Gen Y. It's not connecting as well as it might. It's certainly not like it did with the baby boomers and the Gen Xers.
Sure. It's actually spawned an entire industry of companies that teach that are very happy to collect a lot of money to teach them how to do that. I've been tapped for that myself. It's very interesting. It seems that this is a very difficult generation to reach, but sort of once you get their attention, it can also be very lucrative.
It seems like there's a lot of focus today on the social mission, and not just pure profits as the motive, but the social motive, having a charitable affiliation, having a mission, and the Body Center certainly did that very well, but that's an older story. Talk to us about some of the newer stories along these lines and
Sure.
how people might be able to use that to their advantage.
I see more companies in this generation with social missions than I've ever seen in my career. In fact, I surveyed these folks and asked them if they would say that their company had a social mission, and 70% said yes, which I thought was just amazing. And for them, it's not just, I'm going to give like 2% of my profits to breast cancer once I'm profitable. It's now I'm starting out, and even though I don't have profits or revenues right now, I'm going to commit to having a social mission. A great example of that is a frozen baby food, organic baby food company called Happy Baby, which decided, the two women who started this, Shazi Visram and Jessica Rolfe, decided that for every unit of baby food they sold here, that they would feed a child in Malawi for a day through a nonprofit called Project Peanut Butter, which makes a substance called Plumpy Nut, which is a nutrition-rich substance that's used for populations of children who are malnourished. And they've done that, and they've had an enormous impact. And it wasn't just, we're going to make money first and then we're going to give it away. It's, no, we're going to do this continuously. And there are companies that are wholly socially driven. There's a great company called One Hope that produces wine, and for every varietal has a cause attached to it, and 50% of profits are given to those causes, including the environment, breast cancer, families of fallen troops, autism, AIDS. It's not just 50% of this product, it's 50% of every product, profits from every product. They have a social impact every single day.
Fantastic. How about some of the renegades, people that are just sort of redefining the way work is done, the way business is done? Certainly the clothing has become a lot more casual. Certainly the attitude has become more casual. Work has become much more mobile. We can take it with us everywhere. What else is going on in the renegade world?
Well, I mean, I call these a lot of these folks workplace renegades, and that means that they're really starting the kinds of companies that they want to work for. And very often that does mean things are more casual, but there's a lot more going on than just playing Wii in the break room and wearing flip-flops and bringing your dog to work. I mean, this is a generation that will work extremely hard, but if they're going to hang out in your office for 12 hours a day, they would like to be able to sort of blow off steam once in a while and play a video game or watch a movie or put on their rollerblades or ride their bike. I guess they don't rollerblade anymore, do they, Jason?
That's actually already out of date.
Go play some music somewhere. I mean, it's really, for them, work and life is a 24/7 mashup, and their feeling is, if you want me to get something done, I'm going to get it done. It's and you shouldn't really care when I get it done, as long as I'm making my deadline and I'm performing. And so you find that there's a lot more flexibility in these workplaces. But there's also a lot more meritocracy, and there's a lot more training and investment in employee success. And part of that reason is because companies know if they don't do that, they're not going to be able to keep these Gen Y people, because they're going to just move on to a company that will give them what they need. And for most of them, if you ask them what the most important thing in their work life is, they're not going to say money for the most part. They're going to say that they want to work for a company that's invested in their success. And for them, that means teach me, give me challenges, give me a mentor. Maybe you have some of these companies even have their own, on-site universities, as informal as they may be. But they want to feel that they're sort of part of a community, and that they're contributing to a big goal. They just don't want to sit and file papers and type addresses into the computer. They want to feel that you can have them do that, but you better, let them know that what they're doing is having a bigger impact at your company. I think that's essential for this generation.
It's back to that mission, just like the social capitalist concept of really having a mission, and that's great. That's what business should be. It's definitely a mission. So how do you take it from the idea, the upstart, the sort of the proverbial garage.com and that type of thing, out into the world, grow it up, scale it, make it big, make it a success? What does one need to know about that?
Well, I mean, I think that that what needs to happen is that things change very quickly in today's business environment, and these particular entrepreneurs are very attuned to having their fingers on the pulse of the marketplace, to being very agile, and to sort of shifting when they need to. Many of the companies in this book have shifted business models a couple of times already. They also, where they sometimes trip up is, as the companies grow, a lot of these younger entrepreneurs just don't have the management experience that they need to suddenly manage a growing workforce. And a lot of them say, gosh, when my company gets to the size where I don't know everybody's name, that really makes me uncomfortable, and how do I deal with that? And so they need to know when to bring in help. So some of them will actually even, hire a CEO, or at least a COO, or other professional managers to help them run the company while they can still go off and think big thoughts.
The example that just keeps coming to my mind is Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. He's, all of 24 now, I believe, or maybe he's 25
I don't really know how old. I think he's maybe a little bit older than that, but yeah, he's just frightfully young.
Yeah. Facebook has made quite a few gaffes, especially of late, and they're under the microscope. I mean, I guess you have to be.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, that's what does the movie trailer say? You can't make a gazillion friends without making a few enemies as well.
Right.
I'm going to see the movie when it comes out. I'm very curious.
I saw the trailer for that, and I can't wait to see it myself.
But, Facebook is potentially the biggest, one of the biggest life-changing businesses in the past decade. So, and it's grown exponentially, and of course they're going to make mistakes. Of course they're going to make people mad. What matters is how they respond. That's what everybody is watching. How are they responding to people when they make changes that are unpopular, and how are they responding to privacy issues? And that's how Zuckerberg will be judged in the final analysis, is how he reacts. And so, you can't forget, these kids are still in their 20s.
Right, yeah. So they may not have acquired the skill yet to handle delicate situations that may arise, right?
That's it. You can only expect so much. But with great success comes great responsibility. So the deal is that if you don't know, if there's stuff you don't know, you better get somebody in there who does know it and sort of know enough to just sort of step aside and say, okay, you handle it.
Well, Donna, I do want you to know I just sent you my Facebook friend request. So
excellent.
Look for
I'll
that.
Respond immediately.
Yeah. Talk to us about the future. And this really, I hope you'll just take a couple minutes on, because it's really, really important. Things have changed so much. Things are still changing so quickly. We're in a tough economy right now. What is the future of the upstart business? I mean, nowadays, so many people would just treasure the opportunity to have a quote-unquote safe, secure job.
Right. But there's no such thing anymore.
Of course there's not.
Yeah. Right. There's no such thing as a safe, secure job anymore. One of the conclusions that they seem to be reaching is if there's no such thing as a safe, secure job, what the hell? Why don't I just go out and start my own company? It's not nearly as risky as it used to look, because the corporate world is so dicey these days. So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, when I started writing the book, we were still going gangbusters. And right as I started writing it was when the economy started tanking. And I thought, oh my gosh, what if half of the companies I've interviewed are going under? This is terrible. So I contacted every single one of them, and I just said, please, if anything's happening, bad is happening, you've really got to let me know, because, this is my book. I'll come find you if you go under by the time this book comes out. So they approximately half of the respondents said the recession has actually been good for, or has had little impact on their company, which I was shocked at. And about 62% of that group had revenues under $100 million. So the smaller companies were still hanging on. Only 20% or so said that, 44% said revenues will be lower than expected for 2009, but that they were stable. A tiny percent, 5%, said, we've taken a big hit and we're just barely hanging on. The majority of them basically said, we're okay, and we're actually maybe even better than okay. Because I think a lot of them had started companies where they were either a lower cost provider, or they had found a way to offer a service or a product that was actually saving their customers money. And so, the other thing about these companies, Jason, is that because these founders are young, they don't have mortgages, they don't have school tuitions, they can actually go lean a lot more easily than more mature companies are able to. They can even go live in mom's basement and eat ramen noodles for a few months if they need to keep their companies going. And, and in many cases, a lot of their workforce is young as well. And so, when you're young, you can make those sacrifices. I mean, venture capitalists after venture capitalists has told me they love investing in these companies because of exactly that reason. That these kids don't have, that they don't have these requirements, these huge financial requirements, and they can make sacrifices, and they can work the long hours, and they can take risks because they basically got their entire lives ahead of them. I think the future for these kids is pretty bright, and I always say that I think this is a generation of serial entrepreneurs. The vast majority of them will tell you that they want to start more than one company. I think I would be very surprised if in 2 or 3 years, most of the companies in the book were not either sold or had morphed into something entirely different. Some will survive, I'm sure, but some will have shut down, and their entrepreneurs and their founders will have gone on to start second or even third companies. I fully expect that. And what I expect is that when these kids are on their second or third companies, that's when you're really going to see some incredible companies take shape, because those companies will be the product of years of learning and years of making mistakes and then correcting those mistakes. So I think as these serial entrepreneurs mature and are on their second, third, or fourth companies, then you're going to see these are going to be the next Steve Jobs and Bill Gates of our time.
Absolutely. So what's the next big idea? In profiling all of these companies, you must have had a few.
The next big idea for me?
For whatever. Well, for you
them.
certainly, but for entrepreneurship in general was what I was asking you.
What is the next big idea? If I knew that, I would be executing it myself and going out doing it right now and raking it in. I have 2 Gen Ys to put through college, so I am definitely looking for the next big idea. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there are going to be big ideas happening in every single sector of the economy. People are always looking for ways to not only create new sort of game-changing products and services, but to make what we have, even better and more interesting and more innovative. So one of the trends that I'm seeing, and I saw this, I just finished some work as senior editor on Inc.com's 30 Under 30 package for 30 entrepreneurs, 30 coolest entrepreneurs under age 30, and I saw a lot of the people on this list were sort of creating these sort of niche social networks like Sprouter, which is a Twitter-like platform, but specifically for small business people. Crowdflower, which is a crowdsourcing website where businesses can find freelance labor all over the world. So there's a lot of this going on. I mean, I think as websites like Facebook and Twitter become bigger and more unmanageable, I think you're going to see sort of smaller types of very specific niche communities evolve on the web, and I think that a lot of these are going to be started and managed by younger entrepreneurs who are very much know how to do this.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you have any thoughts as to how a new startup might help in differentiating themselves? Anything that you noticed with these startups that they've done successfully? Because it seems as though with all of the stuff out there on the web, and these tend to 90% be web-based businesses in one sense or another, there's such a small amount of differentiation between the companies, or the consumer can't really tell what the point of differentiation is. One of the two things.
Yeah, well, I think for me the big differentiator is always service and brand. So if there are 2 different companies that, offer essentially the same type of service, I'm probably going to go with the brand that I respond to most personally, and whether that's because there is like maybe a social mission attached to it, or it's run by a CEO who has a strong voice on his or her own blog, or the company is known for. Why do I buy shoes from Zappos? When I can just go down to Lord & Taylor. I do that because they make it so easy for me. I mean, I pick out the shoes, they send them to me. If they don't fit, I send them back for free. And because I love Tony Hsieh as a CEO. I mean, who doesn't? He's like an iconic CEO, and he sells shoes. If that's not living proof that you can do absolutely anything and differentiate yourself, I don't know what is. That's all about service and corporate culture, and, that's the strength of that company, not the shoes. I mean, who cares about the shoes? Anybody can sell shoes, right? So, I think it's, I do think that sort of that culture and service are a huge differentiator. And in these days, consumers have so many choices. There's no reason for them to put up with bad service. You get bad service once and you just move on. It used to be that if you were a business, you got a second chance. There are no second chances anymore.
Well, Donna, this has been a fascinating discussion. The book again is called Upstarts: How Gen Y Entrepreneurs Are Rocking the World of Business and 8 Ways You Can Profit from Their Success. Donna, give us your blog, website, etc.
Well, you can check out more about the book on donnafenn.com or upstartsrock.com. I also have a blog on BNet CBSI, and that blog is called Upstarts and Alpha Dogs. Alpha Dogs is my first book. Just visit bnet.com and you'll find me there under Business Owners, the Business Owners channel. I'd love it if people would go to Inc.com and check out the latest 30 Under 30 list. It's a fantastic list of young entrepreneurs. If you really want to know what's next, you should check out what these kids are doing. They're pretty amazing. And then I have a blog on Inc.com as well.
Fantastic.
So that's it.
Well, good stuff. Donna Fenn, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
Copyright the Hartman Media Company. For publication rights and interviews, please email media@jasonhartman.com.
This show offers very general information concerning real estate for investment purposes. Opinions of guests are their own. Jason Hartman is acting as president of Platinum Properties Investor Network exclusively. Nothing contained herein should be considered personalized, personal, financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Every investor's strategy and goals are unique. You should consult with a licensed real estate broker or agent or other licensed investment, tax, and/or legal advisor before relying on any information contained herein. Information is not guaranteed. Please call 714-820-4200 and visit www.jasonhartman.com for additional disclaimers, disclosures, and questions.